Yes, we're live. Hello. Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, IFNG. Oh, wait, sorry. I forgot to turn on my camera. Hi. I'm right here now in Abu Dhabi City. So wala ko sa room ko. So yes, good evening, IFNG members. I will just check on our Facebook Live. Yeah, so we have, as of now, we have 6 viewers on Facebook. So don't forget to tag your friends, share this video, and to our Zoom participants, it's 25 Zoom participants. So for our topic, still the same from British Council, I would like to call on, but first I would like to say hi to Marvin. Marvin, he's driving right now, and thank you to Gladys for sharing the links to our GCs. Okay, Gladys, is this Gladys sound out? Different Gladys. Okay, please welcome from our British Council squad, Miss Danica. Hi, Miss Danica.
Hi, thank you, Sir Jeff, and thank you to the IFNG team. Once again, we're here. We will be having the last session on our series of webinars. So for tonight, the past few Mondays, we covered the writing tasks, the IELTS writing tasks. And tonight, we will be discussing the IELTS speaking test. And with us again is our IELTS expert, our resident IELTS expert, Miss Marge. And she has been actually with the British Council for many years now. She has a doctorate in literacy and also a Master of Arts and degree in literature. And she is also, she's currently also teaching at the graduate school at Ateneo de Naga University. So without much further ado, I introduce to you Miss Marge Fajardo. Good evening, Miss Marge.
Good evening, Ms. Danica, and good evening, IFN. Again, this will be our last session. So for the past, Ms. Danica has said, for the past weeks, so we have been talking about the strategies that we could use for the speaking test. And tonight, so we're going to focus on speaking. Okay, I hope that tonight you would participate because we will actually practice. So how to actually go about the sections of the speaking test. Okay. So before we begin, so again, I'd like to know where you are at the moment. So can you please type in the chat box, where are you right now? Okay, so which country are you joining from? I'd like to know. So, okay, so from UAE, how about the others? Okay, so Kim is from the Philippines. All right. Okay, good. So I hope that someone would and actually participate. Okay. All right. So we also have someone from Iran here. Okay. All right. Now, and yes, in Saudi Arabia. All right, so thank you. So again, we will actively use the chat box so for us to interact. But later on, probably we're not going to just type in our responses, but hopefully I could hear some of your voices this time because we're going to actually practice speaking. All right. So I would just wondered, how do you feel about the speaking test? So some of you, for example, we have been discussing about writing for 2 weeks now, and probably some of you are pretty much confident, probably in the writing test. I just wondered, how do you feel about speaking? So can you please type in the chat box? So what's, for example, what's your level of confidence in this section of the IELTS test? So how do you feel about the speaking test? So please type in the chat box. I just wondered, how do you feel about taking this? Okay, kinakabahan, challenging, overwhelmed, all right? Okay, almost zero confidence. I wonder why is that, Kim? Actually, for Filipinos, okay, because we have been used to actually speaking in English, so this is not really a foreign language to us. we're actually, Filipinos have actually an advantage. So when it comes to speaking, but remember, we don't just need to know how to speak the language, the English language, for us to ace the speaking test. What we need to really understand are the strategies that we could use so that we could really convey our idea in a very structured way. Because here, you cannot just sample go on and on. So, but in 15 minutes time, you should be able to convey your idea as well. Okay. All right. So before my thoughts, IELTS pang mayaman, pang don't be scared. So because with the right strategies, so I think we can make it. Okay. All right. Every day, but I notice that I have specific redundant words like okay, and I think, well, I do that too. I'm sure by now you've probably heard my favorite words, okay, or phrases, but that's all right, okay. So because the IELTS examiner so won't really keep track of all of your okays and I thinks, but they'd be more focused on something else. All right, so that's what we're going to find out for tonight. All right, so I'm now going to share my screen so that we could start the discussion of the strategies that we could use for the IELTS test. So again, feel free to type in your comments or your question in the box. All right. So let's have first a warm-up quiz about IELTS. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the next slide numbers which are very important for the IELTS organization. So I want you to type in the chat box, what do you think is the significance of these numbers for IELTS? Okay, so let's start with 1980. What do you think? So can you type in the chat box? What do you think is the significance of 1989 for IELTS? Any guess? Okay, so some of you may have actually left the, okay, the break room line. All right, so please get back, okay? 1989, anybody? Okay, that's glad, yes, okay, so that's right. 1989 is the time, okay, so which is they have been here for a long time providing us service, okay, where language learning is concerned. Okay, next, how about 5 days? What do you think? Oh, sorry, it's my line that's breaking up. Sorry. Okay, so I wonder, can you hear me now? Duration of the exam? Oh no, you're not given that much time to actually take the exam. So actually 5 days is the maximum number of days in which you can actually know the result, especially if you are taking the computer-based exam. So they're very quick nowadays because of a computer-based version of the test. And so you can expect that after 5 days, you'd know the result. All right. Now let's go to the next number. What about 4 million? Any guess about 4 million? What is that 4 million? Okay. So 4 million passers so far or takers? Actually, yes, you are right. So 4 million is the number so far exams administered by the IELTS organization. This is a pre-pandemic time. So this means as we are speaking now, so this particular number is increasing. All right. Thank you for your guesses. What about 4? Any guess for 4? This could be, yes, you're Sarah. Okay. So these are the 4 sections, okay, or 4 parts of the IELTS test. So of course, there's the speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Okay, good. How about 250 words? What is the significance of this? Yes, you are right again, Gladys. This is the maximum number of words, so that you are minimum rather, sorry, I'm so sorry about that, the minimum number of words that you should use up when you're composing the task 2 of the writing task. So we have discussed that last week. Good. How about this? 9. Yes, or that you could ever get. And some of you may actually be aiming for this particular score. Okay, it's the perfect band score. Yes, that's right, Grace. And finally, how about 11,000? Any guess? All right, that's the price of the IELTS test. Okay, but yes, you are right. Okay, somebody says it's actually the number of organizations which actually accept. Okay, so these are the number of organizations that accept IELTS scores. So this includes universities. Okay, includes immigration offices. Okay, so employment agencies. So that means that many organizations are now recognizing, so that the IELTS exam, okay, so can truly determine the proficiency, so of people using the English language. All right, so I think you're quite ready now. Okay, so I think you have done some research, okay, so about the IELTS, and we have remembered so some of the things that we have discussed last week. So let's now go to the IELTS, the speaking test this time. All right. So what we're going to focus tonight is, first, you'll be going to be given an overview of the speaking test. So what is it that you should anticipate? So in this test, how you will be assessed. And later on, we're going to have a go at practicing some of the speaking sections. And then we're going to provide you with useful tips for the speaking exam, okay? And Ms. Danica later will give us information on the valuable resources that could help you prepare for the speaking test. All right. So first, so remember, there are 3 tasks for the IELTS speaking test. So the first one is task 1, which will be the introduction and interview. So this is usually, this will probably take about 4 to 5 minutes of the time in the speaking exam. But remember, even though this is just sort of like a warm up, okay, so the examiner is already actually trying to gauge so your proficiency here, okay? So if you believe in the saying that first impressions last, so this means that you should definitely aim to make a good impression. So in the introduction and interview part. Now the second part is the long term, okay? So in long term, here in this particular section, chance to actually speak, so for a time, so without the examiner actually interjecting questions in between, but it will be you who will speak. Okay, so for 2 minutes, so about a particular topic. And then, of course, in task 3, then this is the discussion part. So you will discuss with the examiner about relatively unfamiliar topic. Okay, so for 4 to 5 minutes. So all in all, the speaking test will be between 11 to 14 minutes. Okay, so in this 14 minutes, you should be able to really give the impression that when you go to another country, so you'll be able to convey your ideas very well. So especially in everyday situations, okay? So you should be able to tell the examiner that you'll be capable of actually carrying on. So everyday conversation, so with the people. If you're actually working in another country right now, I think you are pretty much at an advantage here. So in the speaking test, because by practicing this, you're already speaking the language every day. So when you're talking to your colleagues, to your patients, okay. So this means we just have to know what are the that we could use so that we would be able to structure our ideas well. All right. So again, so you be familiar with part 1. You'll probably be asked to answer 9 or 10 questions on familiar topics. So this means that the introduction of the speaking test will somehow give it the chance to warm up. So familiar topics will be given to you, like for example, about where you live, for example, or where you study, about your family, perhaps. Okay, so relatively familiar topics. However, as I've said in part 2, then you will now speak here for 1 to 2 minutes on a familiar topic. Okay. However, what is good about the IELTS test is that you are given 1 minute to actually prepare for the exam. So this means you can take notes. Okay. So, and then while you're speaking, you can certainly glance at your notes every now and then. Okay. And in part 3, so that's where the uh, 5 minute discussion with your examiner would come in. Again, you will be asked certain questions one after the other. So regarding more unfamiliar topic, but still a topic related to part 2. And this is your last chance. So to really convince so the examiner that you are capable so of or you are proficient um, in the English language. Okay. All right. So what are the assessment criteria that we use for the speaking test? Okay. So can you please put in the chat box? What do you think? While the IELTS speaking examiner is listening to you speak, okay, so during the exam, what do you think is he or she focusing on? So again, can you write in the chat box? So what do you think is the examiner focusing on as he or she listens to you speak during the exam? Okay, so Vin says your cohesion, vocabulary. So this is some of the assessment criteria in the other sections, right? Okay, fluency, pronunciation, your confidence. Okay, so your lexical resource or vocabulary, as we said. So how you communicate. Okay, pronunciation, right? So great. Okay, so definitely overall your communication skills. All right. So let's see if in the IELTS test the same criteria in writing is also assessed. Okay. Now, if we go to this word cloud, okay, so we will notice that this particular word cloud actually summarizes. So for us, what is actually being assessed in the IELTS. So if you're going to see, as you have said, some of you mentioned pronunciation, right? Okay. So when it comes to pronunciation, for example, you tend to interchange P and F, okay, because usually that's the common error. So usually committed by Filipinos, only because in our own language, for example, in Tagalog, okay, or in some of our local dialects, we don't actually have an F, okay? And so therefore, we tend to interchange this, okay? P and F. Another aspect, for example, of pronunciation would be sometimes we Filipinos would interchange I and E, okay? So, for example, instead of saying Pepsi, we would say Pipse, all right? So again, because in some of our local dialects, the okay, or the short E sound is not really that emphasized. And in our own language, so we tend more to use the hard I sound, okay? All right, so these are common errors. And again, as you have said, yes, grammar. A common errors again, okay, so that we tend to commit when we're actually conversing is the use of the appropriate tenses, okay? So because if you are, for example, focusing on something which is happening right now, but then again you kept on using the past tense form of the verb, then that could become confusing. So this will definitely affect. So the band score that will be given to you. Yes, okay. And some of it says plural and singular forms, right? Okay. So or subject verb agreement. So as some of you mentioned here. So yes, although between subject verb agreement and pronunciation errors, I think what would be more, for example, confusing would be the use of the wrong verb tenses rather than subject verb agreement. Subject verb agreement when you're conversing could be, you could still be understood. Okay. All right. Yes. Sometimes yes, incidentally, you're right. Okay. So our use of personal pronouns like his or her, he or she, sometimes we interchange that only because in our own language we don't have that, okay? So we just say sha, okay? And sha could mean a man or a woman, okay? So that's why we really have a tendency so to commit errors when it comes to personal pronouns. So yes, okay. So now that you know, so some of these common errors, now that you know that we will be assessed based on our use of correct grammatical structure, our use of vocabulary, how fluent we are, how cohesive are our ideas, how organized, okay, and of course our pronunciation, then I hope that you'll be on the way to start speaking. Okay. So let's go one by one. Okay. So to what to the assessment criteria. So first, fluency and coherence. So we have been talking about fluency and coherence before. However, in the writing test, we focus more on coherence and cohesion. Okay, so if you remember that. But in the speaking test, the word fluency, okay, so is important. So what exactly do we mean by fluency? So when you say fluency, is the continuity of the speech, okay? For example, when the examiner asks you a question, do you tend to pause for a long time before you begin speaking? Do, then I'm afraid that will really lower, okay, so your band score. Yes, if you use a lot of ums and I think that's all right, okay? So you can definitely use ums and but not too much, okay? So otherwise, again, that will signal that you don't know what you're going to say next. You're groping for words, and those are the signs for the examiner. So to give you a score, okay? So a low score when it comes to fluency, okay? And again, when we say coherence, This means use of connectors or discourse markers. So this means that, for example, I have given you examples of some of the important transition words that you could use in writing. These are the same transition words that you can use when you're speaking. Yes, okay. So for example, you would say something like, however, but. So if you use transition words, then you are saying that I'm contradicting so what I've previously said. Okay. And then if you're adding new ideas, then you would probably use connectors like also, moreover. So again, these are little words, but very important words to connect. Okay. So your ideas to another. Okay. Some of you says who said this fillers. Yes, it's all right to actually use fillers while you are biding your time. So while you're thinking of an answer, you can use, for example, dead air fillers, like for example, something like, that's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about it before, you know? So that sentence alone, okay, so it is what we call a filler. So you use those while you're thinking of what you're going to say next. And that is part of fluency, okay? All right. Now, how about the next criterion? Then we have lexical resource. So by now, you should know that lexical resource means the choice of vocabulary, okay? So use of less common words will be given more points. But again, let me emphasize that you need not use very big words, okay? So the examiners are not looking for very big words, but okay, as long as the words that you used are appropriate for the context, then okay, so this means that you can get a high score. Okay, so when it comes to vocabulary, all right. It also means using idiomatic expressions, like for example, instead of saying, for example, delay, then you can say, I have put off. So this for a long time now. Usually we use idiomatic expressions in conversations. Okay. So whereas we use more precise words like delay, for example, in writing. So when you use idiomatic expressions, then that should give an idea to the examiner that you can fairly well convey your ideas when it comes to everyday conversations. All right. And then what else? Grammatical range and accuracy. So how accurately did you use, for example, the verb tense? Okay. So did you, for example, use a complex sentence? So every now and then. So when you answer the questions, so that's part of what the examiner is going to be looking out for. Okay. Of course, pronunciation. And pronunciation means involve a lot of elements. It would involve sentence stress, which we're going to practice later, the rhythm of your speech, the intonation. Which word do you tend to emphasize? Okay, and the phonemes. When you say phonemes, for example, did you articulate well the P's and the F's and the B's and the V's? All right, and the I's and the E's. So these are part of the what we call pronunciation involving phonemes. Okay, so remember, these are the when you're the minute you begin speaking, then the examiner is already trying to determine where is this examinee at when it comes to fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Okay, so this means probably as you go along, then you will be able to change the mind of the examiner as you go through each of the sections of the speaking test. All right, let's first focus on fluency and coherence. Okay, so how do you, when you say fluency and coherence, so you have to speak at length without long pauses or without you tending to repeat yourself again and again. Okay, so that means you have to practice before you actually go to the exam room. Okay, so please practice speaking at length. Okay, so without having to actually make long pauses in between ideas. Okay, you also have to learn to organize ideas. So, which, for example, especially when it comes to part two, when you're asked to prepare what you're going to say, this means you have to ask yourself, which one should I mention first? With which one should I mention next? And which one should I mention last? So this means the that will be given to you. So we'll give you the idea how you're going to structure. So your um, the long term, okay? So part of the speaking test. And then signpost. Okay, when you say signposting, so this simply means that you're telling the examiner what are you going to talk about, okay? And at the same time, you're also telling the examiner where will you go next. So this means this is somehow alerting the examiner so of the structure, so of your speech, okay? So later on, we're going to give examples of how you could signpost. Okay. And then, of course, part of fluency and coherence is how well do you express or justify your opinion? How well do you discuss or speculate? So when you say speculate, that means you're not sure and probably you're just hypothesizing. So you can definitely do that. So in the speaking test. All right. First, let's go to fluency. Okay. So some of you says buying time. Okay, so some of you said that. So I wonder, can you give me examples of phrases which you could use to buy time? Aside from, for example, it's difficult to say, I think. Okay, so that's an example of a phrase. So which we call a filler. So which could really give you time to think what you're going to say next. Or maybe you could say something like, that's an interesting question, I suppose. All right. So in the chat box, please, can you think of certain fillers? So which you could use as you think of what you're going to say next. Can you suggest other phrases which we could use aside from these two? So because your suggestions would really help us when we take the exam. May factor po ba yung emotion? Of course. Okay. So your facials, your intonation, that would be part of pronunciation actually. Okay. So you have to put emotion in what you're saying. Okay. So M says, oh, that topic. I don't usually talk about that topic, but I guess, I was mulling this over recently and I think, okay, so that's good, Sarah. All right. Or Isa says, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. However, I guess this is it. Okay. I don't have a profound knowledge about this topic, but I'll tell you what I think nevertheless. Okay. So these are examples of phrases which you could use to buy your time. You will not be given a low score if you use this because this is part of the strategy. This is part of our fluency strategies. And we always use this every now and then when we're conversing, right? Okay, so even in our own dialect anyway. So this is really part of speaking every day in our everyday conversations. All right. How about this one? So this is what we mean by when we say signposting, okay? So in signposting, you have to alert your examiner that you are responding to a particular point, okay? Like for example, when you say, yes, I agree, so the word agree is already a sign for the examiner that, okay. So if you agree, then as an examiner, perhaps what you're going to say next is that you're going to give me the reasons why you agree with a particular issue, okay? Or, for example, you say, I'm not sure I agree with that. You see? Okay. So this means with this kind of phrase, you're already alerting the examiner that you are going to give the reasons why you disagree. Okay, so you're going now to, I am now going to anticipate what I'm going to hear next. So that's what I mean when we say signposting. So you have to give idea to the examiner, what is it that I'm talking about? So that means in the first sentence, you're agreeing, okay? And when you say because, that's already giving the examiner an idea that you're going to give the reasons next. And of course, another way to signpost is to use comparing and contrasting words. Okay, like for example, when you say something like, "In my view, there are probably two main differences." Okay, so this means that this is already giving the examiner an idea that you're going to contrast. Okay, because you use the word difference. Okay, so remember fluency and coherence. Okay, fluency means your ability to articulate immediately. So what you're going to say without using too many pauses in between, and being able to fill in the dead air. So with filler phrases. Okay, and coherence means signposting using transition words. Okay, so I hope you got that. All right. Now, another aspect, okay, of fluency and coherence, okay, so is signposting, okay. So again, sorry, I have already discussed this. Signposting means where you are in the discussion, where you're going to go next. All right. Another aspect, okay, of or another criterion is lexical resource or collocation. When we say collocation, this means these are the words that go together. Okay. In the same way, like for example, ice cream and banana go together because we can make a banana split. Okay. But ice cream and ketchup, okay, they don't go together. All right. So it would have a yucky taste. So that particular metaphor should somehow give you an idea what collocation means. All right. Now look at these words shown you on screen. Now, can you type in the chat box which words go together? Okay, like for example, you can probably just type in the chat box, do you think do progress or make progress go together? So if you think that do progress go together, then you type in the chat box 1A. If you think that make progress go together, then you type 1B. Okay? So can you please type in your answers now? Okay, 1B, 1B. Okay, one muna tayo ha, 1. Okay, 1B. So most of you think that uh, make progress go together. All right, so we'll see later. Okay, so what's the correct answer? How about in the second combination? Okay, verb and preposition. Do you think we say based on or based from? All right, so can you please type in the chat box, which do you think go together? 2A or 2B? 2A, 2A. All right. Mm-hmm. All right. So most of you think it's 2A. All right. So we'll get back to that later on. How about in the third combination? Okay. Do you shout daintily or shout threateningly? So which one do you think is the correct, okay, combination? Is it 3A or 3B? Okay, so here we're kind of not, we don't really have a consensus here. So some of us would say it's 3A and 3B. All right. How about for number 4? Do horses neigh or do horses squeal? What do you think? So which one go together? Is it more 4A or 4B? 4A. Think do you think horses neigh? Okay. So at least one of you says, no, it's really squeal. All right. And how about the last one? Do you say excruciating pain or excruciating joy? 5A or 5B? So most of you are saying 5A. Okay. All right. So let's see in the slide. Okay. So most of you are right. In number one, we say we're making progress and not really doing progress. And yes, usually in number two, this is a common error. So especially by Filipinos, some of us would say based from, but actually you should say most of you are right about this based on. Okay, that's good. And in number three, shout daintily don't go together because these are really opposites. So when you shout, so somehow you appear rough, okay, but dainty is somehow has the connotation that it's somehow in a soft voice, okay. So they really don't go together. And yes, horses neigh, but they don't squeal. So it's the pigs, so which actually squeal. And then, yes, most of you are correct here when you say excruciating pain. So, because we don't really say excruciating joy, because excruciating already somehow connotes being in pain. Okay. All right. So, that's what we mean by collocation. So, as you are speaking in the test, then your examiner is already trying to determine. Have you said something which is actually jarring to listen to? So meaning they don't jive, okay? So they don't go together, and the examiner would probably take note of that, okay? So I hope that you start to be more aware of what particular words go together, okay? Now, when we say lexical resource, okay, or vocabulary, it also means connotation. What is the connotation of a word? And a word has what we call neutral connotation. When you say neutral connotation, we neither feel positively nor negatively about it, okay? However, there are some words in which there's what we call a positive connotation. So when you hear it, it really encourages us to look something in a positive light. Okay, and then of course there's what we call the negative connotation. Okay, so in which just listening to the word will already give you negative ideas or negative emotions about it. Let's have an example. For example, when you say inactive, if somebody's inactive, all right, it doesn't really move us, okay? It doesn't necessarily evoke positive or negative emotions in us. But when you say it's lazy, okay, so definitely, I think we would all agree that that's a negative term. But when you say laid back, okay, so there's a still when you say laid back, so still you're inactive, but it doesn't have that negative, okay, so tone in it. So when you say laid back, all right, I'm just taking my time, all right. But when you're somebody labels you as lazy, okay, so that means it conjures negative emotions in us. All right, so let's practice. How about thin? Thin is neutral. So can you give an example of a word which might have a positive, okay, so connotation when it comes to thin? So remember, the word that you're going to type in the chat box should have a similar definition, okay, so with thin. So, but then again, it would evoke, for example, a positive connotation. All right, so can you please type in the chat box positive fit? Mm-hmm. All right, but when you say a fit, okay, so it somehow gives a connotation that you're somehow doing exercises, which may not be inherently um, be part of being thin. Okay, right. I think that one. Some of you said slim, right? Okay, or slender even. I think between slim and slender, slender would have a more higher degree of positive note in it. Okay, but both slim and slender, would have positive connotation. Lean, yes, I think so. It will. It is definitely would have a positive connotation rather than thin. Okay. Now, how about negative connotation this time? Can you give me examples of words? Malnourished, okay? Malnourished somehow would already somehow be connected with lack of nutrition, okay? Emaciated, yes. Skinny, definitely, okay? So again, so you can already um, you already have an idea that these are words which evoke negative emotion in us. Although being anorexic has something to do with it's a psychological problem already. Okay, so which will have a different flavor. Weak will somehow focus on strength. Okay, which will not really be synonymous with thin. But yes, okay, so skinny would definitely have vision. So what does this mean? So let's yeah, some of you said slim, okay, skinny. So what does this mean? So this means that if you use the exact words, okay, so for example, if you use slim when you're talking about your friend whom you are particularly fond of, then you probably use the word slim, okay? But then again, if you're describing somebody whom you're not particularly fond of, then you might probably want to use the word skinny, okay? So that's how powerful language is. And so therefore, the examiner is already trying to determine how are you using the words? Are you using, okay? So words depending on the context. So for example, if you are describing a positive situation, are you using positive words? Okay. I mean, are you using words which have positive connotation? And if you are, for example, describing situations which are rather ugly, okay, and not pleasing, and so therefore, are you using words, okay, so which have negative connotation? So please make sure that you use the most appropriate word depending on the context. All right, now let's go to another aspect of vocabulary. And this means that less common vocabulary will be given more points, okay, in the IELTS speaking test. However, please don't always use big words. Do not try to impress the examiner, all right? So for example, if you say, why don't I use the word hefty instead of big, all right? But yes, you can use the word hefty for book, for example, or you can say, oh, she has a hefty salary, because hefty could also be used for amount of money. But if you say, for example, oh, I'm part of a hefty organization, like the British Council, you cannot use that, okay? Because hefty is not synonymous with big when it comes to organization, okay? So that's what I mean by, yes, you can use big words, but use the big words appropriately, okay? So do they go together, for example? Next, be careful with the use of cliches and metaphors. Okay, so when we say cliche, these are overused phrases that once somebody begins these phrases, you can already finish it. Okay, so for example, again, can you type in the chat box? I'm going to start a particular sentence, you finish it. Because if you're able to finish it, then that means that's a cliche. All right. All right. So how about this one? I'll cross the bridge. Can you type in the chat box? Okay. How that sentence ends? I'll cross the bridge. All right. You are right, Del, when I get there. Okay. So Del and Bea. So that means because you're able to finish it, that's a cliche. Do not use that. Okay. So the examiners might be looking for a more original way of saying things. All right. Let's have another example. Take it or leave it. Right. So again, Bea, okay, Sarah, you got that right, okay? So again, that's an example of a cliche, okay? Or for example, how about a metaphor? Let's say, oh, her face was red as a, red as an apple is not really usual. Okay, red as a rose is a cliche. Okay, so probably when you say red as an apple, oh, that's all right. You can use that because that's not a cliche yet. Okay, so but when you say red as a rose, then that's already a cliche. Okay, so this means that the examiner might actually be want you to use more original phrases. Okay, so depending on the context. Okay, so rather than resort to using cliches and metaphors. Okay, another aspect. Okay, so of lexical resources, you have to make sure that you use the most appropriate. Okay, so meaning. So for example, instead of saying you know what, uh when he opened the gift, I saw that he's like a kid in a candy store. Okay, so some would probably think that as a cliche, but instead of saying that cliche, so he's like a kid in a candy store. So can you give me a more appropriate one word to replace that cliche phrase? He's like a kid in a candy store. Yes, okay, you're right, Alex. He's so excited, right? Can you give me other synonyms for excited? He was so excited. He was so, what else? Ecstatic. Yes, right. That's right, Bear. Buzzing. Okay. He was buzzing about it. All right. That's good. Okay. He was so thrilled. Okay. Yes. Okay. Oh, this is good. His eyes lit up like a diamond. Okay. Um, I think that's a good way of putting it. Okay. Oh, he was so enthusiastic about it. Okay. He was over the moon. All right. I can see that. I think you're going to have a high score when it comes to vocabulary. Okay. Now, let's have some more practice. Okay. So when it comes to less common vocabulary, look at this. Okay. So instead of saying, for example, based on this picture, then this older woman would probably be a teacher, right? All right. So instead of saying a teacher, can you think of synonyms for a teacher? Okay, so again, can you please type in the chat box? A great teacher. She's an educator, which has a positive connotation, right? She's a mentor. Okay, so again, positive connotation. Instructor. Okay, so I think between an instructor and an educator, instructor would have more of a neutral connotation, right? Okay, professor. Good. What else? Right. So any other synonyms which you can think of. So remember each of the words that you have provided, okay, or mentioned here has a certain connotation, okay, and so use that appropriately. A leader, not quite, because a leader may have a different role than a teacher, okay, but yes, a lecturer would also be a synonym, okay. So for example, so thank you for your answer. Yes, coach could also be another a synonym here. So right. So for example, when you say a guide, so I think a guide has more positive connotation, okay, so than a teacher. When you say instructor, okay, so that's more of I think it gives the impression that the person is more focused on you learning about some skills, okay. A tutor, for example, or a lecturer is more appropriate for especially lecturer is usually appropriate for university context, okay, as well as professor, and in some contexts tutor is also used, okay, so to as a synonym for or as a substitute for lecturer in university context. But when you say, for example, mentor, then I think a mentor is not necessarily bound in school settings, okay. So, and for example, when you say guru, then I think it has the connotation of focusing more on spiritual, okay, so aspects so of learning. So yes, you can use these synonyms for teacher depending, okay, so on the context. So the examiner will probably be on the lookout for that, okay, so that you use less common vocabulary so to convey your meaning appropriately. Now, what about this? Okay, so look at this photo. Probably it's going to give an idea that this is describing a very sunny day. So instead of saying today is a very sunny day, which is more common, can you think of less common phrases, okay, or words to substitute for very sunny? So again, please type in your answers in the chat box. Can you think of alternative? Okay, so word for very sunny. Scorching. I like that, Mary Tess. Okay, good. Fair weather. When you say fair weather, so that means it's good, but very sunny would somehow already have a negative connotation. Okay, so think of words so in which you're not very comfortable. Fair weather, so somehow connotes comfort. Okay, it's still a comfortable there. What else? Bright, not necessarily. Okay, sweltering. Yeah, that's a great. Okay, so substitute. Okay, sweltering uh, heat, for example, we say. All right, what else? Any other vocabulary you can think of? Okay, so yes, some of you say sweltering, scorching, okay, boiling, sizzling, blistering. Okay, so if you use these words, probably the examiner is like taking note of those words you're using. Okay, so and it's probably going to give you higher score when it comes to lexical resource. Radiant has more positive connotation, I think. Okay, so this means that you have to determine, for example, does this particular context connotes positively, negatively, or it's just neutral? And so you're going to start, for example, describing so that situation. Then you have to use words which have similar connotations. Blazing hot, I like that. All right. Okay, what else? Now, how about this one? Okay. Now, when we talk about growing your lexical resource, so for example, in part 3, you'll be asked to talk about a particular topic, this in the same topic, okay? But you'll be asked questions about it one after the other, okay? So this means that you have to have a ready repertoire of words, which is all about talking about that particular topic. So all of these are somehow related to jobs. Losing a job, for example, type of work, looking for a job, or money. So for example, instead of saying losing a job, can you think of other terms which you might use? So somehow, which is the same as losing a job. So again, can we type in the chat box, please? Losing a job. Fired, right? Okay. What else? Can you think of other vocabulary? Okay, so yes, I was fired. What else? I was retrenched. Yes. Okay. Oh, I was on furlough. Yeah. Okay. Terminated. Good. Okay. Yes, these are words. Okay. So which I was laid off. That's good, Chris. All right. What about type of work? Can you think of vocabulary which is somehow the same meaning as type of work, occupation, right? Okay, what else? White white collar job, blue collar, yes, okay. Those are types of work or occupation, profession, yes, okay. So definitely, so employment, good, okay, professional. So you see, you have a wealth of vocabulary within you. Okay, so just waiting for them to get out. Okay, how about money? Can you give me examples of words related to money? Yes, trade is also part of a type of jobs. Okay, money, compensation, that's good. Okay, what else? Finance. Okay, or finance, monetary, right? Wages, yes. Remuneration or dough, that's more informal, yes. Okay, or income. Very good. How about if you're looking for a job? So if you're looking for a job, can you think of alternative words which you could use? Okay. Hmm. So probably these days, okay, so in these pandemic times, so most of us are looking for a job, okay, so job hunting, yes, or something to do about looking for job vacancies, yes, I'm trying to be an applicant, okay, or searching for employment, okay, good. All right. I think this particular batch is really great with vocabulary, okay? So that's a very good sign. I'm looking for work, right? Okay. So this means you have to use those words. Okay. The less common your vocabulary is, then the higher your score. Okay. So would be when it comes to lexical resource. Okay. So some of you already mentioned this. Okay. So some of these words. All right. Now let's go to the next criterion, and that is pronunciation. Okay. When it comes to pronunciation, we're talking about sentence stress. Okay. So, for example, what do you mean by sentence stress? Uh, which particular word do you tend to give a stress? Okay. So on, or which word do you tend to emphasize? Because when you tend to emphasize a particular word, that changes the meaning of the sentence. Okay. So for example, look at this. I'm going to show you. This our sentence is about cars. But in the first sentence, I said she might consider a new car. And then, what if I put a stress on new? Okay, if I put a stress on the word new, then what am I saying? What am I trying to emphasize here? So can you please put in the chat box? What am I emphasizing, or what am I trying to say if I put the emphasis on the word new? Yes, she needs a new car. Okay, so this means she needs to buy one. Her car needs to be replaced, right? Okay, she needs a new car. She doesn't want a used car. Okay, that's good because you're emphasizing on new. Then that means you are somehow hinting that the other car is already old. Okay, and it's already used, for example. All right, that's good. Okay, so you're getting the hang of this. Now, how about if you go to the next sentence? What if I actually put the emphasis on car? Okay, so what could I be saying? Again, put in the chat box, okay? Mm-hmm. Recent model, all right? A different vehicle or model, right? Okay, so this means not this, okay? So, but a different vehicle or model. Okay, let's try, because we're talking about sentence stress. It's very important here that we don't just type our answers, okay? I want to listen to you this time. All right, so can I see a raising of hand here, okay? So who would like to volunteer to read the first sentence and then read it and give emphasis on the word new, okay? So this means that's where you put the stress in the word. Anybody? Anybody who'd like to try? Okay, so raise your hand and we'll see. Okay. Or do I just call here? That's all right. Okay, so yes, okay. So I can call somebody. It's all right because we're practicing here. Okay, so we're not going to laugh at you, but we're going to root for you. Okay, so that we could actually give you feedback. All right. What about Gladys? Okay, so Gladys, can you try Can you read the first sentence and then please put emphasis on the word new?
Okay. Can
Gladys,
I?
you're very active.
Hi.
Yes. Good.
Okay, the first one, I said
Mhm.
she might consider a new car.
Good. Okay. So this means that what you're saying is your car is already old. Okay. So you should consider a new car. All right. That's good. Now, what about the second one? Okay. So who would like, Bea? Would you like to actually read the second sentence? But this time, so if Gladys actually emphasized on new, what if you emphasize on the word car? All right. Can you do that, Bea? Go ahead.
Um, I said she might consider a new car.
Could you give it more emphasis, please?
I said she might consider a new car. I don't know.
A new car.
New car.
Okay. Right. All right. So this means when you are actually going over the speaking exam, you might want to actually put a stress, okay? So on certain words to be more emphatic about it. So, one of you asked a while ago, is emotion important when you're speaking in the IELTS exam? Yes, because that's part of pronunciation. This where you put the stress, okay? So means you are actually being more emphatic about it, okay? And so therefore you're giving it due emotion, okay? Like for example, when you say, instead of just saying he doesn't like me, so if you emphasize, for example, on the word like, he doesn't like me, okay? So this means that it's giving a whole new range of emotion in the sentence. Or for example, you could say he doesn't like me, so this means somehow you're giving the impression that me, he doesn't like me. Why? Okay. So why does he like others but not me? So you see, where you put the stress actually changes the meaning, and so therefore the examiner will be on the lookout for that. Where do you emphasize? Which word do you emphasize and why? Okay, and whether that particular emphasis is appropriate uh, um, um, in the context, okay, or in the meaning that you're trying to convey. All right. Now let's go to another practice. Okay, so let's practice speaking in part one. Okay, so remember, this is where the examiner will form his or her first impression of you, okay, and your level of English. So this means that you have to make a good impression in this part. So what happens? What do you think happens in the first speaking test? Okay, so let's see here. These are some tips for you. Okay, so remember, if you remember in the introduction, okay, so in the first part of the speaking test, the examiner will take about 5 minutes to give you some questions, okay, probably 9 to 20, 10 questions. So on certain things which are rather familiar to you, okay? So these are some of the tips for you to ace, okay, or to make a good impression during the first part. Answer the specific question being asked. So, for example, if the examiner says, "Where do you live in at the moment?" So, focus only on where do you live, okay? So, do not really get off the topic, okay? Give full answers, okay, with reasons and some additional information. So don't answer only in one word or two words, okay? So this means that you have to elaborate. Even if, for example, the examiner does not ask you why, does not actually give a follow-up question of why, then you must be ready. So to give your reasons why, okay? So although it's not asked. Another tip for you is that the candidate should not give a prepared and memorized answer. Okay, so I think the examiner would somehow know. So because when we give a memorized answer, so somehow it would show. So that would be a complete giveaway. Okay, so that you're not prepared. So if you kind of sound robotic, okay, and you don't mean what you're saying, so I really hope that you would not be tempted. So to actually memorize some other examples given, for example, online, okay? And then, as I've said earlier, do not give short yes or no answers to the questions, okay? So you have to clarify, okay? Another tip, however, is do not ask the opinion of the examiner, all right? So, for example, when the examiner, for example, asks you, okay, so where do you live at the moment? And then you answer, please do not actually ask the examiner, how about you? Where do you live? Okay. No, okay, that's a no-no in the speaking test. Remember, you're the one. So who's being assessed here and not the examiner. All right. So don't ask for the opinion of the examiner. However, you can ask questions to the examiner, for example, if you do not understand the question. So you might perhaps say something like, pardon, can you please repeat the question? So that's fine, okay? But asking the opinion, okay, of the examiner or the response of the examiner, so is a no-no. So please don't attempt that. All right, so what do you think are some of the topics? So that would be asked of you in part 1. So can you type in the chat box? Can you think of topics? What do you think are some examples of topics so that okay, so some of you says education, work, okay, about museums, hometown, okay, or where you work, study, okay, what country are you from? All right, hometown, arts, mm-hmm. Ads, countryside, technology, okay. You're right. All of you are correct. Okay, so because anything is possible, in for part 1 topics. Okay, you'll probably be asked about your job, your studies, your family, what books do you read, what films do you watch, okay, what are your hobbies, what's your favorite food, okay, so when do you go shopping, all right, music, computers, okay, your town or city, the internet, clothes, pets, oh, you name it, they've got questions, okay, so for these topics. So what does this mean? You have to be ready. Before you go to the examination room, you must have practiced talking about, okay, these different topics. I'm sure when you go online, you'd be able to find a lot of tips, okay, a lot of sample questions. So for the speaking test, then please use those to practice, okay, so because you'd never know what kinds of topics so you would be asked of you so in part 1. All right, so remember this, okay? When you're practicing, so I'm sure there'll be lots of resources that you can find online. But what we could suggest, okay? So that a strategy for you to practice really exhausting your vocabulary, challenging yourself to think of different ways of saying things, okay? Practicing your pronunciation, your fluency and coherence, let's practice with this particular strategy, 3 replies, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to answer it 3 times. But this means you have to answer it differently each time, okay? So this means you're not just going to use substitute synonyms, okay? But you have to think of another way, okay, of answering the question. So that's how you practice, okay? So you might want to also do this on your own later. Okay. So, may gift daw. Okay, so yung mag-volunteer. Okay. So, sige nga. Who would like to go first? Okay. So, let's practice. So, again, please unmute yourself. Okay. And let's hear how you reply to the same question 3 times in 3 different ways. Okay. So, meaning you have to think of another way of replying to the same question. Okay. Who would we pick this time? All right, how about Jay? Jay? Sige nga, Jay. Are you ready? Let's practice. Okay, I'm going to give you a question. Reply to it 3 times. All right. Jay, are you okay? Yes? Jay, are you here? Jay, who actually typed weather a while ago. Yes? It's all right. Okay, so don't worry. So we're just practicing here.
Miss
Okay.
Marge? Miss
Yes.
Marge? Sorry, I think there are some volunteers raising their hands. We have
Oh, sorry.
and
Can you call them for me, Danica?
yeah, I think you can unmute yourself if you want to join.
Okay, so Ellen. Elaine.
Elaine.
Do we
Good
call you
evening,
Elaine
ma'am.
or Fatima? Yeah,
You can call me Elaine.
Elaine. Okay, thank you, Elaine, for volunteering. All right. So, Elaine, please answer this. What kind of home do you live in?
At the moment, I am living in a home wherein my parents used to live.
All right, that's one answer. Okay. Second, what kind of home do you live in, Elaine?
Right now, I'm living in a rental apartment near my workplace.
Good. Okay. What kind of home do you live in, Elaine?
Right now, I'm living in a 2-story house in the countryside. I am currently living with my parents.
That's good. Okay, so this means you have just practiced, okay, Elaine, how it is to answer the same question in 3 different ways. Okay, so this means you have to be prepared to be able to use, okay, so these types of responses. So to answer these questions. So thank you for being game, Elaine. All right.
Thank
How
you.
about the next volunteer, please? Okay.
Hello, it's me again.
Okay, and it's me is
Gladys.
yes, Gladys. All right, thank you, Gladys. Okay, this is a question for you, Gladys. Gladys, what do you like about the area where you live in?
Well, on the area that I live in now, we have certain beach nearby, and most of the museum are just around the corner.
Okay, that's good. Second way of answering this. So, Gladys, tell me, what do you like about the area where you live?
Well, I am actually living at the metro, so everything is everything is in reach. Meaning to say, I have malls, I have banks, and I even have my university here.
Good. Okay, how about the third way of answering this? Okay, Gladys, so tell me, what do you like about the area where you live?
Well, I am currently living with my mom in the countryside. So most of the time, we're just going to one of our farm and we just harvest fresh fruits.
Great. That's great, Gladys. What does
Well,
this
none
mean?
of them is true.
Yes, I know, but that is that's
Thank
what
you.
I was about to say. Okay, Gladys, it doesn't
Thank
have to
you.
be the truth. You don't have to say what is really true in the speaking exam. Okay, so in a way, you have to bluff your way out in the speaking exam. So this means that
Thank you. Thank
as
you.
long as you're able to describe, okay, so and answer the question, okay, directly, then you're fine. Okay, thank you, Gladys. Any other volunteer, please? Next volunteer. Miss Danica, you might want to call somebody for me.
Nobody is raising their hand right now, but let's try to call on a person. So let's try a guy this time.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
uh, I don't, we have Harl here. Harl, would you like to meet yourself?
Hello, ma'am. Good
Oh,
evening.
another girl. Okay, Harl. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This is, sorry,
Harl, ma'am.
Kyle. Okay. All right. So thank you, Kyle. Here's a question for you, Kyle. Kyle, what would you like to change about your home?
If I were given a chance to renovate my home, that would be my toilet, since it's so small that I cannot enjoy my toilet area
All
because of
right, that's good. Okay, how about another way of answering that? So, Kyle, tell me, what would you like to change about your home?
that. Every time I move this area, um I always uh bump into our washing machine because of the small space that we had on this area.
Good. Okay. How about another way of responding to it? So, Kyle, what would you like to change about your home?
Well, I am planning to have a space like a laundry area to be able for me to transfer the washing machine that can add the space in our toilet.
All right. Okay. So, thank you, Kyle. Okay. So, for being game about this. Okay, and for
Thank you so much.
volunteering. Yeah. So you see, so that's the strategy that we would like you to try. So look for a particular topic, okay? So which you would like to expound about, okay, and try to answer it in three different ways. So this means that it will really challenge you to expound much about the topic, okay, and think of very vocabulary, okay, and different ways of practicing your grammar, okay, so and using cohesive devices. So you know that you get the drift, okay. So I hope you actually do this at home, okay, so on your own. All right, so let's go to the next strategy. Okay, so perhaps you can do this later on. Let's now go to part two. So part two is what we call the long term. Okay, so in part two, so this means you will be asked to, you'll be given a topic, okay, and then you'll be asked to prepare what you're going to say about the topic for 1 minute, and then after a minute, then you'll be asked to speak. Okay, so about it. So you may actually glance at your notes once in a while. That's all right. Okay, as long as you actually speak for 2 minutes. Okay, all right. And then the examiner will just say that um, you have already used up the 2 minutes. Okay, and that's fine. All right. So what do you think will be the what do you think would be difficult? Okay, so about part two task, this long term task. So can you type in the chat box? So what do you think? Okay, so what could be difficult about? Okay, so yes, according to Bea, structuring the flow of the story. You're right. Okay, it is storytelling. Part two is a storytelling portion. Okay, so how do you structure your story? What else? Any other yes, challenge. Another challenge for mix is idea generation while under time pressure. You are certainly right. So because remember, you're only given 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. So it's almost like you're really under time pressure here. Yes, Gladys, supporting details. Okay, so what kinds of examples would I use to support? And yes, using the appropriate verb tenses, because yes, in part two, you'll be asked sometimes to narrate an event that happened in the past, okay? Or sometimes you might even be asked to talk about something about your plans for the future. So using the appropriate verb tense, okay, so would be important. And yes, okay, we're somehow definitely rattled when we are under time pressure. So yes, I can understand why this could be scary. Okay, so part two. All right. So for example, some other what are the skills that will be practiced? Okay, when you do the long term. So yes, some mental block, as Mandy says. Okay, Yes, it could be very scary because how do you plan your talk in the short preparation time of 1 minute? Okay, so what if you actually experience a mental block? All right, that could be indeed that's a very valid difficulty. Speaking to complete 2 minutes. Okay, so what if you pause in the middle before, for example, you're even halfway through your story, okay, and then you froze, and then you don't know how to go on anymore. That could be quite scary. Okay, that's another challenge. And then another challenge would be, how do you talk about the topic that sometimes you haven't thought about? Okay, this is the first time that you're, for example, asked to describe your hometown. Okay, or something like that. So let's practice. Okay. So the key in the speaking part is to practice. You cannot just keep on reading some of the questions online. Okay, you have to actually speak, and that's why we're doing this. All right. Okay, so Harl says, this is my weakness. Sometimes I don't have experience in some of the questions. That's why I'm grasping for ideas because of the limited time. I know, okay? But the thing is, remember, even if you don't know anything about a particular topic, just say whatever comes out of your mind, okay? So don't keep the examiner waiting, okay, until an idea comes to your mind, okay? So remember fluency. So that's an important aspect of speaking. All right, so let's have a volunteer. Okay, so let's have an example again. Okay, so first, but before the example, let's probably focus on what strategies could you use to prepare for part two. Okay, one, you'll be given a card, okay, or a prompt. If you're doing the computer based, the prompt question will be shown on screen. Okay, so what you can do is to read it immediately and then you take note based on the order of information asked. So usually the questions would ask you, where was it? Okay, when was it done? Okay, or how was it done? And so therefore you take note your response to the question based on the order of information asked. Okay, use whatever is you're comfortable using. Are you comfortable using an outline, a spidergram, bullet points? Okay, so by all means, use those techniques. Okay, and then if you can think of less common items or phrases, so to actually that are related to the subject, then that will be even better. Okay, so why don't we practice, all of us? I'm in the next slide. I'm going to give you an example, a question. Okay. What I want you to do is I'm going to give you 1 minute to take note. Okay. So I hope you have ready. Maybe you can even use your cell phone. Okay. So to take note of what could be your answer. Okay. So for the question. And then later on, after 1 minute, I'm going to ask some of you to volunteer. So looking at your notes, how are you going to answer it? Okay, so but remember, when you take notes, please do not take notes in complete sentences. All right. So just use keywords, okay, or phrases. All right. So are we ready? All right. So remember, I'm going to give you 1 minute to take note of this. So I hope everybody would participate in taking notes. This is the question for you. Describe a museum or art gallery that you have visited. You should say where it is, why you went there, what you could see there, and what you remember most about it. Okay, your time for taking notes starts now. All right, time is up. So I wonder, what did you put in your notes? Okay, so I'm just going to give you a sample, okay? So of some phrases that some of us might use when we actually go to the long-term part. Okay, so for example, when you were asked where it is, then you could probably say situated, located, next to, practically right next to. It could be found on, or it's a stone's throw away from. So these are example, okay, so of certain transition words or cohesive devices that you could use to locate. So the museum. Why? So remember, why is the reason. Why did you go to the museum? So some of your notes might say, oh, I just went there purely out of boredom, was interested, I had time to kill, I had a burning desire to see the museum. Okay. What you could see there, okay? So could say ancient artifacts, fossils, contemporary art, exhibitions, items on display, okay? Works of art, but I was prohibited from touching them. Okay. What do you remember most about it? It was blown away. Okay. It's full of wonder. Right? This is a lasting memory. Okay. It was fascinating. All right. So this is just examples of some words that you could use as you now go to the long term. Long term. All right. So can we have another volunteer? Okay. So remember, you have 2 minutes. So the examiner won't will give you the full 2 minutes. Okay. So to talk about, to respond to this prompt. All right. So anybody who would like to volunteer, have a go based on your notes. Okay. So that we could probably give you feedback. Okay. So that would be the advantage of you volunteering, because you get immediate feedback. Okay. So with us listening to you. So, but remember, don't be scared. All right. So we're all novice here, and we know that English is not really our native language, and so we're bound to commit errors, and that's fine. Okay. So we're just practicing here. So anybody who'd like to volunteer, or perhaps Miss Janica would. Okay, sige nga. Very brave of you, Elaine. Go ahead. So, for example, I'm the
Hello, can
examiner,
you?
Elaine. Okay, and for example, I'm going to say, all right. So, can you start speaking now, please?
When I was in my second year of secondary education and as a part of a science group, we were tasked to visit a national museum which is located in UP Los Baños. It is also same with my hometown, and part of the itinerary of our group is to visit this national museum. What I have observed from the museum is that it contains fossilized mammals as well as insects that are put into a frame and displayed for observation. All throughout the session, we were being guided by a lecturer who gives some handful of information about these animals and insects. It also contains different pictures of the past. And I clearly remember that I was really fascinated by the collection that was maintained over the years. It was also a memorable experience because I get to bond with my classmates as well. We were also having fun looking at those animals that were placed in a formalin because it was the first time we get to see those kinds of um, animals, and it was also a very
All right, thank
educational
you.
trip for us. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. That's good. So don't worry, for example, if the examiner just butts in and say, all right, that's enough. Okay, so because remember, you're only asked to speak for 2 minutes, okay, and you can't go overboard. And so therefore, don't worry too much about it. So if the examiner actually interrupts you in the middle of your sentence. Okay, so this is my feedback. Very good. Okay, so that's very well said, Elaine. Okay, so you're able to describe. So indeed, you're able to answer the first three questions: where, why, and what you could see there. And definitely you ended it with what you remembered. However, when you, for example, said Los Baños, okay, remember that some of the examiners may be foreigners. They may not be Filipinos. And so therefore do not assume that they know what you're talking about. Okay. So this means that if you're talking about where, then probably you can give more information about Los Baños. Okay. So because they may be unfamiliar, okay, with it. Another thing is you said something like, and when we were there in the museum, we were given a handful of information by the guide. So perhaps you might want to extend that a bit. What kind of information were given to you? Okay, so for example, what did you learn based on what you were asked to see? Okay, so what were, for example, your insights? And this will somehow extend, okay, uh, um, the long term, okay, so that you could actually reach the maximum of 2 minutes. But overall, Elaine, that was great, okay? So thank you. All right. So I hope you get the drift. Okay, so this means how can you practice? Okay, so for the long term, what we can do is to just what I would suggest is to find a topic, okay, and then just practice talking about it, okay. So you could even ramble, so until you are comfortable talking about a particular topic for at least 2 minutes, okay. So let's do that. Let's have some more practice on uh, um, really talking about a topic, okay? So for at least 2 minutes. So can we have another volunteer? This time, I'm going to give a topic, okay? Just one topic, not like this anymore. But what I just want you to do is to just keep on talking, okay? And just tell us anything that comes into your mind, because that's one way of making sure that I don't have dead air, all right? So any volunteer, please. Okay, yes. So this won't be long now.
This is Miss
All
Jen.
right.
I think we have one volunteer.
Okay.
Jen.
Okay, that's good. Jen. Let's have a practice, Jen. Thank you, Jen. Okay, here's a question for you. Just remember, I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna look at the time here. Okay, and just talk about a childhood best friend. Go.
I'd like to talk about one of the most special person in my life. That would be Jeannie Lynn. She is my best friend. She is actually second to none, and she is the one who always there for me every time through ups and downs. She is able to comfort me. To be honest, we were friends 20 years from now, because actually I before that was not the town that I grew up. That time I moved, I transferred to that place, and I was able to meet her. All I can say
Okay,
that
thank you,
this
Jen.
best friend that I
All
have.
right, thank you, Jen. So that's good. Okay, don't worry. Okay, how did you feel about it, Jen? Was it a nerve-wracking experience?
Yes, mom.
Yes,
This is the
yes.
first time
Okay.
actually I joined this. Um,
Yeah. So I
speaking.
can understand, okay? So based on that experience, you know just how nerve-wracking it is. So I'm sure that you'd really appreciate this strategy of that we have talked about, which is to practice, okay? Just practice talking about something, okay? So for at least 2 minutes. All right. So thank you, Jen. So thank you for being sport about this. Okay. Now let's now go to part 3, okay? What could be challenging about part 3? Okay, so because here you'll be asked to uh, um, talk about, okay, you'll be asked to talk about somehow more unfamiliar topic, but still related to the topic given to you in part 2. So, however, uh, the questions will be asked one after the other. Okay, so some of the problems that you might experience for party would be, how do I discuss issues that I have not thought about before? Okay. And how do I listen? Okay. So because remember, after you have answered, the examiner will ask you another question. So your listening skills will really be practiced here. Okay. And how do you use the appropriate vocabulary? Okay. And some of the topics for part 3 may somehow be more unfamiliar. And so you would somehow be forced to actually use more complex language. So what we're going to do, the strategy which we, again, ask you to consider would be give examples, okay? I mean, focus on your experience, okay? And then give, for example, the effects, okay? So of certain situations. So this means these are the ways by which you could expound, okay, or elaborate on your answers for part 3, okay? So, for example, how have museums changed in the last 20 years? So let's just have one volunteer. This will probably be our last question for tonight. So can you answer this? I wonder. Okay, so anyone? Volunteer again? Okay, so any volunteer who would like to answer this?
Hi, ma'am.
Please.
I'd
Okay,
like to
go ahead.
volunteer.
Sure. Okay, go. So,
Okay.
how have museums changed in the last 20 years?
Well, it's quite noticeable that in the last 20 years, there's a big change in the museum. Like for example, when I was a little child, the museums are only for field trips or something that we have to go to because it is required. But as the years goes by, as I was in high school and college, it's quite different in terms of the items that was inside that particular museum is more interesting and different in a variety of students, even young professionals. And as of now, as I am in my professional aspect of life, I think one of the part that I have
All
noticed.
right, thank you, Jen. Okay, so my suggestion, Jen, is in the last part, you have to be direct. Okay, you have to be direct to the point here. Otherwise, if you tend to, for example, beat around the bush, okay, sort of, then you'll probably only be asked one question, and then the time is up. Okay, so if you're only asked, for example, one question by the examiner, then you'll not be able to be given the opportunity to show, okay, what else you've got. Okay, so how competent you are, how proficient you are. So in the speaking test. Okay, so what I would suggest is be direct to the point. Okay, so that's how you get through part 3. Okay, But thank you very much, Gladys. You're always participating. You have actively participating, and thank you very much for that. I hope you practice, Gladys. Okay, and as for the rest, I hope you continue to practice based on the strategies that we have shared here. I'm just going to go through this. Okay, so if you don't understand the examiner, it's all right. You can ask to repeat. Okay, so you can say something like, sorry, could you repeat the question? Or sorry, what did you mean by that? Okay, or perhaps if you're not familiar with the word used by the examiner, you can certainly ask to the examiner to define the word. What do you mean by circus? Okay, or do you does spare time mean free time? Okay, or in part three, for example, maybe you did not really understood the question, so you might say, could you please explain the question? And that's fine. Okay, so your the examiner won't really mind. Okay, so I hope the strategies which I have given you here uh, um, will really be put in to practice. So when you practice on your own. So I'm now going to turn you over to Gladys. So sorry, not to Gladys, to Miss Danica. Miss Danica, the floor is now yours.
Hi. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for sticking around until the end of this webinar. And as Miss Marge has mentioned, we actually have a wealth of preparation resources here at the British Council, which I think would definitely help you with your preparation. So let me start off with the road to IELTS. Okay. So I'm sure you've been following us in the past few Mondays. I've been mentioning about the road to IELTS the past few weeks. This is actually the British Council's full and complete online course where you will have practice tests for the listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Actually, for the speaking, it's really more on the videos that you would get from IELTS experts, sample videos of previous test takers. But apart from all of these videos, we also have, as I mentioned, the practice tests, not only for paper, not only for IELTS on paper, but we also have practice tests for IELTS on computer, or what we usually call the computer-delivered IELTS test. We also have ebooks, which you can download from Road to IELTS. And these ebooks would definitely give you like an overview of each of the skills or the subtests in the IELTS test. And we also have, as mentioned, advice from IELTS experts and some tutorials as well. We also have a series of webinars. We've been running this since the pandemic, and we understand there's some of you who are still a little bit new with IELTS on computer, which is why we've created webinars that would help you navigate through the IELTS on computer screen. So for those who are planning to take IELTS on computer, please attend this webinar. We also have the part 2 where we discuss more of the preparation resources that we have here at the British Council. And apart from the preparation resources, we will also be giving you study tips on how to go through, reviewing for the IELTS test. We have also launched a new series of webinars, and for those who are planning to study abroad, probably pursue a medical degree or your doctorate degree, or something in the medical field, we will be having the Go Global with IELTS webinars, which will start on October 16, and this will be happening every other Saturday afternoon, starting October 16. So in each of the webinar, we will be inviting a partner, a study group, or a study abroad partner who will be discussing the visa application process, the requirements, and even the some of the students that they have already sent to these popular IELTS destinations like Canada, UK, Australia, US, and also in some countries here in Asia. And on December 18th, we will be inviting our IELTS prize winners, whom we have just awarded their prize just a few weeks ago. So please do join us. This is for free. And if you have friends who are actually planning to study abroad, please share this with them. Again, we have our website, ieltsasia.org/ph, where you can find a lot of all other free and paid resources. And of course, we have the exclusive offer for all IFNG members. For those who are trying to look for more preparation or practice test for the speaking, we have the IELTS Speak Up. And luckily for all those who have wanted to register for a test already for October, November, December, just enter the promo code BCIFNG October or OCT in the promo code field when you register for a test with the British Council, and you will get a free voucher, voucher for the IELTS Speak Up. The IELTS Speak Up is actually a 30-minute one-on-one session with an IELTS expert, where the expert will be giving some practice questions or prompts, and you will be answering some of those questions. And this IELTS expert will actually give you personalized feedback on the practice test that you just had. So we have actually gathered some of the testimonials from those who have already tried this. They really found this very, very helpful. So please do take advantage of this one if you're planning to take the test until in any of the test sessions until December 31. Just enter the promo code BCIFNGOCT. Okay, so if you do have any other questions for Miss Marge, you may still do so, Miss Marge.
This is our last session, guys. So if you still have any questions, so please feel free to ask them so that they should guide you so before you take the test.
Sorry, for those who are asking for a copy of the slides or the deck, you may visit the IFNG page. Sir Jeff, I think the whole session is posted there, so you can just revisit the video. Unfortunately, we won't be sharing the slides, but the video is free for you to watch anytime. I guess there are no more questions. So thanks everyone. Sir Jeff, thank you again for inviting us. Miss Marge. Yeah.
So I just like to know you to know that I did enjoy myself. So all in this 3 sessions. So actually coaching you on how to ace IELTS. So I wish you all the best, and I hope that one of these days you'd give us feedback and you say, "Yay! I've actually achieved the band score." So which I'm aiming at. So I wish you all the best.
Okay, so to all the members, thank you for those who participated and volunteered themselves and showing that they are confident. So thanks to Gladys and Elaine and other members. So Miss Marge and Danica, thank you so much, Miss Marge, for your presence for this couple of three sessions. So yeah, if you want to rewatch this, you can revisit our page and then you can screenshot the slides. So thank you to my co-admins, Gladys and Marvin. And thank you, British Council Philippines. And if you're interested, you just message us for the promo codes and speak up. Okay, thank you so much. Have a great night and take care. Bye.